Hello and welcome to your Moon Moves Masterclass. So I'm really excited to share this information with you, and I'm really excited that you're here and you're ready to learn more about finding your flow with your moon cycle, your unique flow with the moon. And so flowing with the moon is something that's very important to me. I'm very passionate about because it has personally helped me so much in my life. If you don't know me, my name is Lisa. I have been studying astrology formally since 2019, but I've been into it since I was little. My grandma's the one that told me my zodiac sign and would read me my horoscope, and we have like a special little thing there. But my big three in astrology is Cancer rising, Gemini sun, Pisces moon. So if you know a tiny bit about astrology and the natal chart, because I'm a Cancer rising, I am ruled by the moon. And so when I started to flow with not only the cycle of the moon, where we have like our new moon and our first quarter, and then our full moon, and then our third quarter, like it's very important to know like the phase that we're sitting in, but to understand that the moon will go through all 12 zodiacs in that cycle every month with whatever sun season we're in. And when I started to do that, I literally was like, this makes so much sense of my moodiness. I'm a very moody person. I just think I'm very sensitive to energy of my environment that I'm in, and then I project it back out. And so when I discovered in 2019 that I was more than a Gemini and I had like a Pisces moon and a Cancer rising, the sensitivity, the quietness, the introvertedness, um, the emotions, the moods all kind of, it clicked, it made sense. I had like an aha moment. And so when I guess went further with that aha moment a few years later, and I was like, let's actually track how I'm feeling every time the moon changes signs. And then I just kind of have it memorized in my head, my flow now. And I use that to assist me in navigating everyday life and emotions that I may feel, because I've learned to accept that I feel a lot. And yeah, being a Cancer rising. And so my moon is the ruler of my chart. And so my moon is in Pisces. So I can be very like woo woo and spiritual and all of that. And it's in my ninth house. So there's the teaching aspect. And so I want to teach this and share this with you. So you can do this regardless if you're a Cancer rising or not. But I always say, like, if you are Cancer rising, I feel like this is like mandatory curriculum that you need to hear and see if it resonates, because it could really help you with navigating the ups and downs and ebbs and flows. So that's just the beginning there, that little spiel. I will get into teaching you the basics of, well, why we do this, because I have some important reasons, not just about my personal connection to it, but some reasons why I think it's really important that we do this work, especially as women. And then into the steps of how you can start tracking. And below this video, there will be a journal for you to use for your first 28-day tracking of your moon flow, and some next steps of what to do after your first tracking of your moon cycle and your flow. So why would I do this? Why would you flow with the moon? So as the moon moves through all 12 zodiac signs every 29 and a half days, we will feel the shifts in the energy. And so my big thing whenever I have people run through I've done in the past, like these free moon flow challenges, or in my moon membership, which I'll talk about at the end, is your body, you intuitively know where the moon is right now. Like you know where the moon is. And you will intuitively be drawn to things based on that zodiac sign, or alternatively, the house that the moon is going through in your natal chart. And so you'll just naturally act in a way where you're intuitively flowing with it. But when we put like a name to it, like, oh, I'm doing this because the moon's in Pisces, or I'm doing this because the moon is in my ninth house, you're like, oh, wow. And it can help validate our experience to then where I want the ultimate goal to be when you're doing this work is you trust yourself more. You're trusting your intuition. You're trusting those shifts and signals and energetic things you're feeling inside your body. And so putting the name to it and using the language of astrology and saying, oh, I was totally doing that this morning because the moon is in Pisces in my ninth house. It can validate your experience. And then I just think that helps strengthen your relationship with yourself and your intuition to the point where you maybe don't need to do it all the time or use that as a validation, but just saying like, oh, I'm trusting my intuition. I'm flowing with the cosmic energy because like I am one with it, right? So that's my big thing there, but you're already naturally doing it. It's just, it brings in a deeper conscious level, conscious awareness level. And so, if you are experiencing like lots of shifts and you are getting lots of intuition hits, I call them mood shifts, anything like that, but you aren't listening to them, like it's knowing when the moon has moved is very helpful. So you can start trusting yourself more, trusting those little shifts you feel in energy. The moon connects us to our day-to-day lives, and learning how to work with this energy practically can be helpful. And that's my goal with all of my work is like, how can I actually take this information and make it practical? And then it can really help bring you into alignment with your own attuned cycles in your life. So, as women, we have our menstrual cycle. So, I feel like it's always important to know what day you're on, and we can kind of relate that with the moon cycle. And then you can also connect your menstrual cycle to the moon cycle and see which sort of flow you're experiencing. And then, if we also think, I'm very big in cycles and just living seasonally and cyclically and all this stuff. Again, my Cancer rising really comes in here. And so because the sensitivity to environmental shifts. So it's the same as like we have 4 seasons. Maybe you want to like how are we going to work with those seasons? You can eat seasonally. We can hibernate more in the winter. We can be more extroverted and social in the spring and summer. Like we automatically as humans, when there are shifts, we attune to them so we feel more in flow and like I don't know, comfortable with our surroundings. Like we're adapting, right? And so it's the same thing with the moon. And even if we want to bring the sun into this, we have the 12 zodiac signs, the 12 seasons in a year, and we flow with those as well. And we shift our focus every 30 days to something new. The moon just really runs with our emotional body, and it shifts our focus every 2.5 days. And I think it's really cool because in our natal chart, we have like the 12 areas of life. And every month, your emotional body checks in with all 12 areas of life for the 2.5 day period. And I feel like, again, I'll just say, like, as women, we're always sort of like all over the place wanting to make sure like this is okay and this is okay and that person's okay and everything's okay over here. And it's kind of mindful when we're almost like trusting in and like letting go, surrendering to like, okay, the moon is flowing through this house. I'm going to focus on this for 2.5 days and then make sure that's okay. And then there's a natural cycle flow of like, it will run through everything. And so I can give a brief overview if you don't know the houses, but it basically is like checking in on yourself and your body, moving to like your work, income, values, next moving to like friends, community, networking, and then your home and your family, and then your creativity, your creative self, and then your health and your habits and your routines, then your closest partnerships, then your deeper self, like deeper emotions you've maybe buried, then to your like, are you being adventurous? Are you exploring? Then to like career and long-term goals, and then the vision that you have or collective organizations you want to belong to, and then your resting period of like, am I taking care of my mental health? Am I giving myself time to rest? And so I feel like that hits a lot of different areas of life. And so every month, intuitively, we check in emotionally of how we're feeling about all 12 areas of life. And yeah, it's just about knowing your actual flow. And it's really easy to figure out your actual flow because there are tools and we have technology and we can use that to help us. So this is a point where if I was teaching this live, I would say, let me know if you have questions about anything that I said. So if at this point you have questions, pause the video, you can email me. I will respond to the email with this video, ask me your questions, and I will answer them. But yeah, this is why we do this. It's because it helps us trust our intuition, basically. And then I feel like, in a sense, I'm really feeling called to always say it can help us like take our power back, right? So instead of letting like external forces in the world kind of get at us and tell us what we need, it's like, no, excuse me, I know what I need. I'm going to listen to myself. And if you've ever, I have a podcast as well. If you've listened to that, you know the title of it. It's also the title of my book. It's called Don't Tell Me What to Do. And I have that, it runs very strong in me with my astrology and like who I am as a person. I don't like being told what to do. I like to figure out things for myself, even if it means messy action, but I like to experience things myself instead of someone telling me what it's gonna be like. It's like, no, I have to like feel it for myself. So I'm really big into like, don't tell me what to do. I want to do it my own way. But then I feel like this don't tell me what to do, which is kind of seen as like an attitude statement a little bit. I've slowly evolved it to like the other day, just like, please don't tell me what to do. I'm listening to my intuition and cycles. Thank you. It's like, sure, that was, great advice, but I'm going to do sort of what I want to do and what my body's telling me to do, what my intuitive self, what my soul is calling me to do. And that's where that really comes from. And that's where I think this work as well. It's like we're shifting to an internal focus because I feel like we just hold so much wisdom in ourselves and we just don't know how to apply it, or we don't know it's there. And yeah, I'm filming this on a Pisces moon day. So I'm going to say things like we hold so much wisdom in ourselves because we do. We just, for whatever reasons of conditioning of society or whatever, we just don't tap into it. We have to be like open to hearing it and all the different signals and ways that it wants to come through, like the messages that it wants to come through. So there's that. At this point, pause, questions, send them to me. I'm here for you to answer them. I love all questions. All questions are welcome. So this is Natal Chart Navigation. I use this slide in everything that I teach because if you don't know how to read your chart, you don't know how to do anything when it comes to astrology or any kind of classes. You need to know how to depict this. So I have the Placidus view one with the house system. So that's what all the houses are. I call them pizza slices, where they're different sizes. So basically, you go to astro.com, you put in your info. I blocked mine out, but there's my birth time. And so I like to say the little X in the middle is you. You're standing there, and then you pretend you look up at the sky. And this is a snapshot of what the sky looked like when you were born. And so all the little numbers in the center, 1 through 12, that's the houses. The zodiac signs are on the outside in the different colors. The planets are the little doodads here. They're called glyphs. We can also call them the toppings on the pizza slices. Doesn't matter how many are in, like how many toppings are on each slice. It's not bad if there's nothing on a slice. That's always a question, so I just like to address it. Down here is the legend in English. If you're like, what is this over here? I call this the boob. It's your sun. But if you didn't know that, you'd look and you'd be like, okay, sun, and then it tells you. Over here is another legend. It's the elements and modalities legend, which is broken down by the colors. And so that's how you read this. So essentially what we're doing when we flow with the moon, and I'm going to have steps on how to do it below, is you would add transits to this. So everything here in the middle like doesn't change. Like for me, this is May 29th. And on the year I was born, at the exact time, this doesn't change. Like my birthday doesn't change. Like that's when I was born. But where the planets are in the sky right now, they would appear on the outside of this wheel. And those are always kind of moving and shifting. And the moon moves the fastest. So right now the moon is in Pisces. So the little green dude would appear right here. And then it would just keep circling around my chart, and it just keeps going every month. And, we're experiencing all the energy. So that's a breakdown of this. If you've never looked at your natal chart, this is how you read it. And again, pause, email me questions if you have them. But this is the chart. I've looked at charts for so long. I look at this and I go, oh, this isn't confusing at all. So hopefully I did my best there to explain it. But the zodiac signs on the outside here like don't change because they're based on your rising sign. The planets do not change. Like this stays the same. This is you cosmically, we could say here, your soul's blueprint. So how you get started is you're going to pull up your natal chart from a site like astro.com, which is this here, and it looks like this. I personally just like the view of this chart. It's what I'm used to seeing. But there are other sites, but I just think this is like an OG, like the original one, and it's helpful. If you make an account, you can save like 100 charts on there if you want to look up like everybody you know. Next, I would say find your natal moon placement so you can always have an understanding of your monthly lunar return. So we go up here and you're like, okay, Lisa, well, what's my moon placement? We can go to the English and say, okay, the crescent is the moon, and mine is at Pisces at 11 degrees. Don't look at these ones over here. These numbers, don't do that. So I'd be like, okay, crescent moon. Okay, I found you. There's the 11, and that's Pisces. Cool. So whenever the moon is in Pisces, I know I'm experiencing a lunar return, which essentially is just like the moon in the sky, the same as my moon. I like my lunar returns. I think they're fun. I really feel like in my energy. Some people might feel like more emotional and more sensitive. Sometimes you can get like downloads of information. You might feel extra intuitive that day. And there's a technique that you can use every month and look at your like lunar return chart, and people use that for forecasting. I just think it's good to know because I just feel like you feel more like yourself on those days. You're like, who am I at my core? You're your moon. Your moon placement is the most important placement. I don't know if I've said that, but it's your emotional needs. It's what you need at the end of the day. So I think it's important we study it. It's like, what do you really need, right? Like you personally, like not anyone else around you. Like, what do you need? I feel like we don't ask ourselves that question enough. And so whenever the moon in the sky is the same as your moon, you're like, okay, wow, like this is it might give you more insight and this is what I really need, or like, wow, I really feel like myself, like this is who I really am. That's how I like to describe it. But I think that's just important to know as like step 2 is know your moon sign, right? Yeah. Next, you want to locate your rising sign. I like to say rising, but you can also say ascendant, and it can also be AC on the chart. So I'm like, okay, AC. Okay, cool. My AC says here 26 which is Cancer. There's that little thing there. So I'm a 26-degree Cancer rising. Cool. Now it's important to know your rising sign because I like to say with our moon flow, there's a reset. So every time the moon is in your first house or where it is your ascendant, your rising sign, you're starting the cycle fresh. So the first zodiac sign is Aries. So we could say like, oh, that's the beginning of the cycle. But if we're looking at you personally, your cycle, and you're tracking your cycle, the beginning of your cycle starts with your rising sign in your first house. So for me, whenever the moon is in Cancer, I'm like, okay, my cycle's starting over again because the first house is you, right? So it's like things that you want. It's like it represents like your body, your physical appearance, but it's all about you. So I like to think whenever the moon is in the first house, we're having a reset, and it always starts with you, and then it'll run through the rest of the houses. And then whenever the sign of your 12th house is, so my 12th house starts in Gemini. Whenever the moon's in Gemini, I go, okay, I'm resting. And then you rest for, let's say, 2.5 days, and then the cycle starts again. So it's important to know your rising sign, your first house, locating that so you know when you're starting, like your cycle resets every 30 days and in that place. I don't like to say like, oh, your cycle's restarting every lunar return because your moon like could be in any house. And to me, it's just like mid-cycle, or you could have a first house moon, you could have a 12th house moon. It could just be anywhere. So the lunar returns will feel different than when you're getting like, I call it the energetic reset of like, okay, I'm ready to take action. I'm ready to like start this again. And that's how I describe it when the moon's in your first house. And yeah, so if you did want to start the moon flow like today, the moon could be in like any house. So you're starting it kind of like in a weird space, and you could wait until the moon is in your first house and then actually like start it when it's in like the starting house, right? But it's very important to my rising sign because it sets up your flow of the houses. And so what you're going to do is, so you pull up your natal chart, you've located these two things, and you're going to go to add transits and click for the current energy days and look at the transit moon. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to stop sharing so I can actually show you how to do this. So I'm just going to become bigger on the screen. Hello. And we are going to look at astro.com. And I have up here the first day I did a natal chart reading as the chart. You can put in like any date. And here's this blue button with transits. You add the transits. This is what it looked like when I did my first natal chart reading, like officially. So I'd look and I'd say like, okay, the transit moon is here in this chart's 10th house. Okay, cool. So when it hits Gemini in the first house, I'll go through my reset. But the step one is identifying, okay, the moon is in Pisces, releasing, resting, spiritual, flowing, all of this. 10th house, career, long-term goals, and how can I mix those together? Okay, but just always look for the green moon on the outside. And this is one way that you can do it. I'm going to stop share this and pull up our slide that I made. And so we found the transit moon, and you're going to see the sign and then the house personally. So that's energy step one, energy step two, and then you put them together. So you can Google and just be like, what's the energy of Pisces? And then like, what's the energy of this house? And it'll give you insight into how you're going to experience the mood of that day. And then you would sort of repeat this process of checking in to see where the moon is. You could check every day, every other day. Essentially, it's like every 2 to 3 days it will shift. And that's just how it goes. So you don't need to check every day. But there is a resource I'll show you below that actually maps it out. You can write it down in your calendar or something like that, or put it in digitally. But what you would do is you would be journaling, or not journaling, but just tracking, right? So this is where I have some Virgo in me, and I'm like, track and collect data so you can analyze it later and you can look for patterns, right? And you can pick your like favorite moon day, your least favorite moon day, and then know these things about yourself to give yourself grace and compassion on days that might feel a little harder for you, right? And then developing that in better relationship with your intuition. So there's a journal below if you want to get started with that, or you can use your own journal, whatever you want to do. And you're just going to track your moods. And it could be something as just like, I had low energy today. I needed to sleep in this morning, so I did, or I need to sleep in this morning and I couldn't. Like my kids were really irritating me today. I really felt the call to enroll in a course. I really felt the need to pick up this book that I hadn't in a while. I was really researching this topic. I was really focused on my health. I wanted to start a new routine. I was thinking about going on walks more. I really was busy at work. People really needed me. Like just tracking these things, and it can really help give you insight into what you're experiencing. So download the journal or use your own. But there is one I made and it's pretty and it's like all the blue colors. And then again, if you have questions about the steps on like how to find the moon and where it is in your chart, please email me. So your next steps with this is I do recommend that you stick with flowing for one moon cycle to experience the flow of it all. And if you really want to track your moods and energy and find patterns, I'd say 3 cycles in a row. So then you have 3 months of data to look at and be like, okay, were there any patterns? Like what was happening, right? And if you would like support from me in a wonderful community, I have the Moon Moves membership, which gives you a lot more access, it says down here, into practical videos of what to do with if you don't want to like research. What do I do with Aries energy? What do I do with like 7th house? Like I have it all in the membership for you with also practical things, guided meditations, journaling prompts, yoga flows, EFT tapping, lots of things that are there to help support you in learning the energy and like learning your flow with community checkpoints every single week so we can like come together and discuss everything. And go through guided mindfulness. So yeah, you just have to like start and just start tracking. And so you could start with the new moon, you could start with your lunar return, you can start with the moon going through your first house. And yeah, but the action step is to just like start writing it down. And yeah, here's the helpful site though. This is what I actually started first using. Like down here at astro.com, pulling it up, seeing where the moon is, like that's very important to do. And I find it's helpful. However, if you wanted to pull out your calendar for the month and be like, okay, let me like mark in these dates, mooncalendar.astro-seek.com. It pulls it up like this and it tells you, and this is wonderful. This is what I first started using. And then it also tells you the organs influenced by the moon sign, which you can also look at as well with like different body parts being affected by the moon sign. Like the little wellness connection in there, I think is really cool. But you can essentially do this. So I would go in my calendar and I would just write down, where it is for those days. And it literally will show you for like the whole year, and you can go backwards and forwards. So they have like all the data there. And so this is all I have for you today. You just have to get started, look up, see where the moon is right now. Go to this website. Like I'm recording this on March 10th. So we had our new moon this morning. And yeah, that's everything. If you have any questions, please let me know. And you'll hear from me in a few days after watching this masterclass. And I am going to check in with you personally and say, hey, have you started yet? Are you tracking your cycles? Like, do you need support? Do you have questions? What has come up? Do you have any findings to report? Yeah, like I love Pisces moon days. That's why I'm recording this right now. I dislike Aquarius moon days, and I know this just from like experiencing it and just tracking what I've experienced. So I will talk to you soon because you'll hear from me in an email, and I hope to hear from you as well. And please let me know if you've started your moon cycle flow and any interesting things that have come from it. And let me know if you use the journal and if that is helpful as well. So happy flowing with the moon, and I will talk to you soon.